YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my pre-college football week 9 power rankings, updating these every single week. We also update our NFL power rankings every week, and we have picks for every game every week in the NFL and the top games in college football. So if you can join us for all that. Before we get started, we're trying to get that 40K subscriber goal. Please help us out by subscribing. Again, full NFL and college football content all year long. Go ahead and click that like button. Check us out on Twitter. And if you head over to our Patreon, link in the description for that, you can get updated mock drafts and plenty more every single week. So a lot of content here at the Goat House on the channel and on the Patreon. To the rankings, you see who just missed the cut, only the teams I somewhat considered or strongly considered, and you see the teams that dropped out of my rankings. And we're going to go from 25 to 1 like we usually do. Number 25 is Pittsburgh, actually. They actually lost to Virginia the first game of the year, and since then they really stepped it up. They played well against Penn State. We've seen them beat Central Florida, and they play everybody close. I got to respect them with their tough schedule, and they're really heating up lately. And I think they're well deserving of being in the top 25. They're honestly, take away the record, they might be better than the number 25 team. So impressive wins, respect the schedule. Now, obviously, I wish they had less than 2 losses, but they're number 25 for me. Number 24 is Iowa State, a team that, even though they have 2 losses, they are very close to being undefeated, because you remember that Iowa game, there was kind of that fluky punt return at the end of the game that was fumbled, and Iowa basically wins off that. And the Baylor game was super tight. Baylor hits a clutch field goal at the end of the game to win it when they were down. So, Iowa State's that close to being 1 loss or even undefeated, so that's tough. Where would they be if they were undefeated? It's tough to think about if you're an Iowa State fan. But, the good news is it's a pretty good team. One of the better defensive Big 12 teams, and the offense seems to be getting better and better each week. Purdy's playing better recently. Early in the year they were struggling to put up points. They're getting better. Young team getting better, and that's what I'd like to see. And the team we just talked about, Iowa's at 23, moving back into the rankings. 2-loss team, but definitely one of the top defensive teams in the country. Mainly they're moving back up for me because a lot of teams lost, but definitely deserving to be in the top 25. And number 23, an unfortunate loss for number 22, Boise State. I just started getting confident in them and moved them up, and they moved right back down after losing to BYU. BYU is just that ultimate sneaky team, another team I respect the schedule, the strength of the schedule, and they just sneak up on teams. They'll have random losses, but they'll just sneak up on teams and beat them. A team that plays hard every single week. So, maybe BYU should go the route of a little easier schedule, and they can be, in the top 25 conversation. I guess that's the negative of having a hard schedule, scheduling tough opponents. So, Boise, only 1 loss, but they still got to fall down quite a bit for that. I'd rather have some 2-loss teams ahead of them like I do. Arizona State at 21. You can't move them down a whole bunch for me because they had a pretty good resume. They do have a pretty good resume. It's a good football team. Good, I think, on both sides of the ball. The defense is more impressive, and they lose to. It's tough to move them down a bunch after losing to a very solid Utah team. So they move on to 21. Still think they're a really good team, well-coached team. Same goes for Michigan. They're down to 20. Another loss added to them. Not the best season. 2 losses on the year. And they were kind of close in some games. They shouldn't be close, but another one of those teams, they're a good defense. They have a good win over Iowa, too. And look, maybe it's nothing, but it looks like the offense started to get some kind of rhythm at the end of the Penn State game. Maybe that is used and a factor in the Notre Dame game upcoming here in Week 9. So we'll see. They have the opportunities to move up, especially this week. They're at 20 for now. Undefeated Appalachian State at 19. Very impressive. Only 1 win that's super impressive against North Carolina. It's an inconsistent team. But being undefeated at this point means something, regardless who you play. It's tough, no matter who you play, what team you are, to be undefeated this late in the season. And that's going to, keep on increasing in terms of the strength, how hard it is to stay undefeated. So undefeated teams will make their way up. They remain undefeated. We'll see. 18 Cincinnati, 1 loss to a very good Ohio State team. It was a bad loss, but it's Ohio State. And a couple meaningful wins like Central Florida. It's a good football team. I like that they're pretty balanced, solid defense, solid offense. They don't have any weak spots. Maybe they're not elite in any spots really, but It's a well-rounded team here. Texas at 17. And it looks weird me having them move up quite a bit because I moved them down a lot for their second loss. It does look weird to have them move up for me, but it's because a lot of the other teams have to move down. You see how the amount of teams that move down because of another loss. I think Texas is better than those teams. And I know it's, like I said, it's tough to see them moving up a bunch after a close game. They barely escaped against Kansas. But it's a win. A win's a win. Kansas actually looked good in that game, that offense. It didn't really look like Texas was playing that bad. At times they definitely need to play better. But, Kansas looks... if that team can stay consistent, it's definitely a team to watch out for the future. But tough game, but they got the win. Moving down to 16 is Wisconsin. I know it's one loss, but you lose to Illinois. You're going to move down a bit. They moved down to 13 in the AP, I believe it was. I don't think that was enough. Not too much further down, but it's the difference. 16 for me. That's a bad loss. Illinois is a struggling program. They're struggling with the recruiting process. It's a little messy. It's a good win for them. It's a terrible loss for Wisconsin there. And that's tough. That's tough for Ohio State, too. Ohio State's getting ready to play Wisconsin, undefeated Wisconsin team. A little more meaningful. What we thought it would be a little more meaningful than what it actually is. It's kind of tough. But they moved on to 16 for me. That is a very bad loss. I'd rather have an undefeated SMU ahead of them with some impressive wins. A team that's getting better and better each week. Impressive offense. The game against Tulsa made me, question them a little bit because that was a little scary. But they just had it was a weird game, weird start, and they pulled it off in the end. It's a very good offense right here. Undefeated, some good wins over TCU as well, and they deserve to be in the top 15. Can they compete with the teams around them? Maybe they can head to head, but it's not really about head to head here. The resume plays a part. Like I said, being undefeated, no matter who you are, means something at this point. It's hard to do. We see upsets all the time. Minnesota's an undefeated team. They're at 14. They should be ahead of Wisconsin. They play a Big Ten schedule as well. It's a similar schedule. And I know Wisconsin has that big win over Michigan, but Minnesota is undefeated. They're looking good. They're putting up points. Another team that's getting better and better on both sides of the ball every week. This team, it's a team to watch out for. I'm not a huge Big Ten fan. I've been known for ripping them in the past. Basically it being only Ohio State. Yeah, Penn State's up there. But some soft schedules, non-conference schedules, playing MAC teams. I've ripped it, but Minnesota's a team definitely to watch out for. Another undefeated team at number 13, the Baylor Bears, well-coached team. And another one of those Big 12 teams that is getting better on both sides of the ball. Surprisingly, a defensive team for a Big 12 team, a defensive team. And then at times early in the year, you kind of worry about their offense a little bit. They wish they can score more points. They were beat up at times, and now they're starting to put it together. And that's what's impressive. So they're at 13. They keep pulling off these wins. I thought Oklahoma State would upset them. No, sir. They're feeling it right now. Utah at 12. Good win against Arizona State. I'm still surprised by the USC loss. I know Huntley got hurt at some point in that game. I know Zach Moss came out of that game. There's talent on this team. There's talent on both sides of the ball. This team, it's a good team. It's a shame they have a loss. It's a really good team. Love Zach Moss a lot. I was watching that Arizona State game. He took an absolute shot to the head, and moments later comes back in and scores a touchdown. You got to love that. One of the top running backs in the nation. There's a lot of good running backs, too. And then Huntley, I think, is getting better. We saw that towards the end of last year. He was getting better and better. And now I think he could do the same thing. Those guys got to stay healthy. That's the thing there. And then Oregon, fellow Pac-12 team there for Utah. Oregon Ducks with a good win over Washington. Washington, even though they dropped out of the rankings, even though they have 3 losses, it's a good team. It's a good team. We saw a close game. Oregon gets a good win. It's tough not seeing them, move up a bunch with a win like that, but it's tough to move them over the top 10. There's a lot of talent on this team. I always talk about, I don't agree with the coaching most of the time. They get a little conservative, and there's a lot of screen passes, a lot of underneath throws that I think you got to unleash the Herbert sometimes, and hopefully they do that down the stretch to make their way. Because, even though they're 11 and we're getting towards the, past mid-season here, it's a team that can still sneak in there. I know it's only 4 teams. It's a team that can definitely sneak up there. There's some big games coming up for some of these teams. Auburn's 10. They have the head-to-head win against Oregon. College football, unlike any other sport, with the when you're ranking teams, head-to-head matters in this scenario, in this situation. I have no problem with Oregon eventually passing Auburn. The thought of that is definitely a possibility. Really, I think Oregon has more overall talent. Auburn's got that defense, and they can upset anybody in the SEC at any time. They have the opportunities to move up really at any time here, even this coming week here. So they're at 10. Number 9 is going to be Notre Dame. They had a bye last week, so no. Well, they move up 1 actually because Wisconsin lost, but nothing crazy there. They got Michigan. I think Notre Dame's the better team. We're going to see what happens, though. It's hard to trust both teams' offenses fully. So that's going to be a good game. We got to get an identity as Notre Dame team. They have some tough opponents coming. A little different than last year. They have a little tougher schedule. So we'll see. Team they lost to in a close game was Georgia. They're at 8. Impressive defensive performance and an impressive DeAndre Swift performance against Kentucky. Not thrilled with everything else. They can't get that big play going downfield in the passing game. And that's what's it's gonna be tough for them to get in. Even though they're number 8, it's gonna be tough task for them to get in. They have the opportunities though. If they take advantage of those opportunities, they can do it. But it's gonna be tough. I got Florida at 7. They were a little tight with South Carolina for a little bit. Executed well down at the end. It's a team that's getting better every week. We know they got a solid defense. Offense with Trask is getting better. It's getting better and better. It's a scary team. I know they have a loss to LSU. LSU is a very good team. They have opportunities coming up here, and it's a good team. I definitely think they should be ahead of Georgia here, and that's why I have them ahead of them. They've just been a little more impressive in terms of the resume this year, and they'll play each other in a couple of weeks. Number 6 is an undefeated Penn State team. I want to see a little more of a challenge still, but they've been impressive. The Michigan game ended up being a little closer than it actually was. The offense made the plays when they needed to. Same with the defense. It looks like Clifford's a quarterback that's getting better and better, making some, good touch throws down the field, down the sideline. And they have weapons themselves. They're number 6 right now for a reason. They're undefeated. They're getting better. Number 5's Clemson. They don't have the best resume, but this defense is legit. It's crazy. They lost their D-line. They lost their fronts, 3 of them in the first round. And we thought maybe that would, if there was anything that would, set Clemson back this year, it would be that. But their defense is great. It's one of the best defenses in the country. The offense is struggling a little bit. Trevor Lawrence is struggling a little bit. That's something that I do think they'll clean up a little bit. But the resume, I think the top 4 teams have a little better resume. It's tough, because, head-to-head, and they didn't play head-to-head, so it's kind of just me assuming. I would take Clemson over Oklahoma, mainly because they're the difference in defenses and the Clemson defense. But based off their resume, based off what they have done, I got to have Oklahoma ahead of them. And I'm kind of just assuming things, so I cannot, flip that just because who I think would win head-to-head. Clemson will have their opportunities, and, if they keep winning and keep showing that they may have the best defense in the country, I may have no choice but to move them up, even if it's against, maybe not the best competition. I think the ACC is a little underrated. There isn't the best teams, but there's a bunch of teams that go out and they give you a challenge. There's not a bunch of top 25 teams, but at all, but they go out and give you a challenge. So I think it's a little underrated, but yeah, I wish it was better, obviously. Oklahoma's at 4 though, and then nothing changing here. Why waste time here? Ohio State at 3, Bama at 2, LSU at 1. You could argue Bama maybe the more well-rounded team, the best team, but resume-wise, LSU much more impressive than Alabama and Ohio State, who maybe are a little more well-rounded. But LSU, Bama, can't wait for that. Ohio State, not easy competition, but games that definitely not easy, but games that they should definitely win. They just got to play and win. They got to win. They're in if they keep winning. They have the Big Ten championship. I just don't. I think this team's clearly the best team in the Big Ten. You can't sleep on Penn State because they are improving. We saw them from the earlier in the year to now. Big difference, and they actually have a defense too, even though the offense is improving more. So I guess you can't count them out. I just think Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten, and they should be in. If we want to talk college football playoff a little bit, what it's looking like down the stretch. The winner between LSU, Alabama, you would think is going to look like they're going to be in, but then they're going to go to the SEC championship. I would like to think they win that SEC championship. So the winner of the LSU-Bama game coming up should be in. I expect Ohio State to win out unless there's some stupid injury. So Ohio State should be in, and then it becomes tough because do you go if Oklahoma goes undefeated like expected, if Clemson goes undefeated like expected, do you go LSU/Bama, one of those teams, with Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Clemson? or do one of those teams get knocked out for the loser of LSU Alabama? Because most people do think those are top-tier teams. So that's going to be interesting. So right now it looks like it's the battle between the top 5 teams, no matter the order you have them. But Penn State's undefeated right now. They kind of control their own destiny. They can sneak back in. Florida's a very good team, even though they have lost to LSU. The rest of the teams will need some help. But at the same time, it's hard to, rule out the Pac-12 champion, because the Pac-12 conference is looking pretty good. The Pac-12 champion has a chance, maybe more of a chance than some of the teams ahead of them, like Auburn, Notre Dame, in Georgia. Even though they're below them right now, they have a solid shot. So we'll see. It's tough though. Some good games on the way. So excited for some of those. We do picks every week here at the Goat House for college and NFL as well. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please subscribe. We're trying to reach that goal. If you want more content like mock drafts, score predictions for the NFL, go to our Patreon, link in the description. Much appreciated if you just check it out. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.